Well, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Hello. Welcome to another edition of Paranormal and Cryptid Rabbit Holes, ladies and gentlemen. We have somebody in the house. Mr. Decker, how you doing tonight?
Hey, how's everybody doing tonight? I'm doing good, Grizz. How you doing, man?
Wonderful. Hello, Rebecca. Hello, Thomas. Welcome to the show. How's everybody doing out there in La La Land? Crazy Witch. Catherine, welcome to the show. Aussie Sue, can't forget you. Coming up in the rear. So Tess H, welcome. Hello there, Tess. Tammy Johnson, yes. Mr. Decker, introduce yourself and let everybody know who you are, kind sir.
Sure, absolutely. My name is Justin Decker. I currently live in the Great Smoky Mountains here in Tennessee, USA. I was born and raised in the Amazon jungle in Colombia, South America. Lived there for about the first 10 years of my life. From there, I moved to the woods of the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. So I went from the deep south to the deep freeze. All right. So from there, I ended up in Florida, and now I'm up here in Tennessee. I've been researching the strange, yes, sir, the beautiful mountains of Tennessee. I've been researching the strange and unexplained since I was about 12 years old. Started online, reading reports, reading books, and I've been going crazy ever since.
Yeah, very interesting. So Mr. Decker, ladies and gentlemen, is very well known in the cryptid world. If you do not know, he is. I've known him for quite a while. So I know when he does things and he says things, you can take it to the bank and cash it. That's his reputation. That's why he is here, ladies and gentlemen. Now, I'm going to let him introduce what we're going to talk about tonight, because I've already seen the comments already coming in. Did you see that there? Thomas, Cook County killings were dogman. Well, we are going to explore this topic, and we're going to dive deep into it. We're going to figure out what is the truth and not the truth. So, Mr. Decker, fill us in what's going on.
Absolutely. And just to start you off, Grizz, it's Cocke County, just so you know. Cocke County, Tennessee, specifically the town of Newport is what we're looking at. I live in Cocke County, about 20 minutes away from where all this went down. And that's what first drew my interest to everything going on. When I first stumbled across this story, it was after the second killing. Amber Miller is her name. And myself and my girlfriend at the time, Jennifer, we drove down there and did a Facebook Live right from the road where everything happened.
No way.
Absolutely. The main road, the intersection is Jimtown Road. And that section of Jimtown Road is very wooded. The trees kind of crowd the road a little bit. It's kind of spooky, especially at night when we were there. And we drove up and down it and then checked it out and kind of did a Facebook Live from it. And that was my very first foray into what was going on.
Interesting.
Okay. Yep.
Interesting.
So, give you a quick synopsis before we run through all the details of it, guys. April 1st, a gentleman was found dead in a yard. There was a 911 call saying that there was a gentleman in the yard. It looked like he had been hit by a car. So the sheriff's office arrived on the scene. They did an investigation and they determined that the gentleman had died through animal wounds. This gentleman's name was Tony Ahrens. And the autopsy report showed that he was attacked by single or multiple unknown animals. And everything else was inconclusive. So that's where we were sitting at.
So there, what I've brought up while he's talking, ladies and gentlemen, what is this document that I've got?
That's the media release.
That is correct. And how did I obtain that information?
You got that from me. So when I started digging in and investigating all this, the first thing I did was call the sheriff's department. And I talked to them, and they said the case is still open and ongoing. Therefore, we cannot give you any information. The only information that is out there is what we provided to the media. I said, all right, thank you very much. I appreciate it. So I went online and did some research, and I found the two reporters that have been covering the story. And so I emailed both of them, and I explained to them what I was doing. I was researching, these attacks, and then wanted to find out what was going on. I'd already contacted the sheriff's department, so they asked me to contact you. One of them did respond, and he was very, very helpful, very forthcoming. He sent me an email that had all the different dates and press releases that the sheriff's department had given him directly. And so I put it together, copy and pasted exactly what he sent me, except I organized it into specific dated paragraphs as you see there on the screen. And what that does is gives us a timeline from the police department to the media of all the events that happened in this case.
Now, because of our audio listeners that are going to be listening to this in the morning, sure, I'm going to read what has actually been documented in the public, in newspapers, and online by these media outlets. And it says, on April 1st, here, let me adjust my mic so I don't get whiplash here. On April 1st, 2021, the Cocke County Sheriff's Office received an E911 call concerning a male individual lying unresponsive on Gemtown Road who possibly been hit by a car. Upon arrival, Tony Aarons was found unresponsive with several injuries which investigators were not able to determine the cause of the injuries. There was no information and no apparent evidence of dogs being involved at that time. Investigators did see injuries that could have been consistent with some sort of animal in the Aarons case, but rely only on forensics and other special investigators to determine what caused the injuries. The investigation began with very little evidence and no witnesses. The E911 caller was identified as Charles Ownby, who reside on Gemtown Road. Neighbors and other persons who lived near the scene were interviewed, and forensic evidence was gathered at the scene, and an autopsy was requested by the sheriff's office. So what happened at that moment?
Well, with Tony, it's an interesting case, okay? I reached out to the community, and I had several people contact me about Tony. There was a few different kind of stories. Some said he was homeless. Other people said that he was just an itinerant, but he had a place to stay. He was camping out. His daughter actually contacted me and said that he was back in the area trying to get back on his feet. Then I was contacted by a coworker of his. And the coworker divulged to me that the day previous, Tony had been asking some of his coworkers if they would come help him with something. Apparently, at one point before this event, Tony had been bitten by a dog in the area, and he decided that he was going to go get revenge on the dog and the dogs, and he was going to go kill the dogs. This is what he told his coworkers and what they told me. The next day, Tony ends up being found dead, supposedly hit by a car.
So that happened on April 1st. Then on July 12th, 2021, the Newport Medical Center contacted the CCSO,
Cocke County Sheriff's
Office, right, concerning an injured female that arrived at the hospital with significant injuries. It states investigators were called to the hospital and began an investigation. The victim, identified as Amber Miller, was uncooperative with the investigators. Investigators once again had little evidence to act upon, but eventually was able to determine Miller sustained injuries on or near the property of Charles Ownby. Unfortunately, Miller passed away, and an autopsy requested to determine the cause of death. We are currently waiting on forensic report and specialists to determine what caused these injuries. As we continue the investigation in both cases, we do have evidence that at the time of the death of Tony Aarons, the use of methamphetamine was a contributing factor in this case. The location of Aaron's incident likely occurred next to the roadway, a short distance from Charles Ownby's residence. We are still working on determining what caused the injuries of Tony Aarons. We will release the cause of death at a later date upon completion of the ongoing investigation. Now, ladies and gentlemen, being prior law enforcement, the easiest way out of anything without saying a word is it's an ongoing investigation. We cannot discuss the matter of the case, nor will we give you any information. Because I did that before with media lots of times, especially when I didn't want to talk about the case. But anyways, so now that happened, Mr. Decker, on July 12th.
July 12th.
So what in the world?
So here's two things just in these two paragraphs that we really want to point out. Okay, one, notice the name, Charles Ownby. Okay, Tony Aarons was found on the roadside, as they say, adjacent to Charles' house. He was in his front yard. He was in his front yard. Okay. Another thing to point out is look when Tony was deceased. April 1st.
That is correct.
The next release is on July 12th, and it says they're still waiting for the results of the autopsy reports on Tony.
Which is inaccurate. It does not take that long for an autopsy report to come back.
Exactly.
Now, another thing, ladies and gentlemen.
Yep. Another thing to point out is where they discuss the use of methamphetamine. Okay. A lot of people in discussing this case say, why are they even talking about this? What does methamphetamine have to do with anything? They're trying to make it look like these people deserve this. And I'm going to be the first person to come out here and tell you guys that's not what they're talking about. Nobody deserves to die this way at all whatsoever. The use of methamphetamine comes up in this case very specifically. And we can get to that here a little bit later on as we start piecing this together. But it is not in any way, shape, or form to detract from the victims in this case of Tony and Amber. I want to make that perfectly clear. Okay? It
so
is
I see, Mr. Decker, what they're trying to do.
Yes.
I see what they're trying to do. Now, it also states from the information from your resources from the media on July 19th, 2021, a search warrant was served on the property of Charles Ownby and a forensic team from the TBI. Now, I'm going to play dumb, Mr. Decker. What is TBI?
TBI stands for the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation.
That is correct, ladies and gentlemen. And I use that resource on missing person cases that I actually cover on Friday shows. Now, they went and collected and gathered evidence from the residents and property. After locating Charles Ownby a few days later, he was interviewed along with several other persons and witness. It says a witness, not witnesses, a witness in which Cocke County Sheriff's Office, right?
Yep.
I lost my space here. Hold on. Interviewed with other persons, was able to locate. Once again, several persons were interviewed in hopes to gather more evidence. Now, right here, I want to point out two things, ladies and gentlemen. First, it says, and a witness, which...
A witness.
Right. A, which means one. The sheriff's office was able to locate. But then again, it states, once again, several persons were interviewed in hopes to gather more evidence. So now I'm getting confused. Then on July, go ahead.
I just want to throw something in there. I believe I have the information of who that witness was. And I have that person's story.
Oh. No, that's interesting.
Yep.
That's very interesting. We're going to come back to that because on July 28, 2021 at 6 a.m., 6 o'clock in the morning, ladies and gentlemen, officers with the sheriff's office utilized the SWAT team. Now listen to this. The SWAT team to execute a search warrant at the residence of Charles Ownby's ex-wife, Cecilia McCarter, in the Edwina community. Ownby was arrested at the scene for possession of marijuana, Schedule 6, and an aggressive dog was taken into custody. An aggressive dog was taken into custody. I just want to make sure I read that right.
That is correct.
Investigators collected DNA from 2 other dogs at the location that belonged to other persons and 2 separate residences on that property. So now what that tells me, ladies and gentlemen, beyond a reasonable doubt, that there are more than one occupancy places on this property. Am I correct?
Correct.
All right. I just want to make sure I'm right. Now, all animal seizures was done in accordance with probable cause and Tennessee laws.
Correct.
Officers located a shallow grave at the property containing a deceased dog, and DNA was collected. Officers also took possession of a vehicle owned being forensically processed. Now,
Correct.
It's weird because it says at this time, this case heavily relies on forensic science. Once again, it says at this time, we do not have any evidence that indicates that there was a wild animal, domestic animal, a pack of animals that is frequenting the Jimtown area or attacking people. It also states, we, however, are asking people to be cautious in the area as we wait on forensic reports that take a month or so. We're asking people to please contact us with any information concerning either of these cases. Once we conclude a thorough, and I like the way they say thorough, investigation, have all evidence, all witnesses, and anything that pertains to these cases, we will present the facts, all in caps, to a grand jury for criminal indictments against any person involved in this case. Prematurely charging any individual without all facts may result in dismissal of the case, and justice for the victims will not be served. Now, that is a fact, ladies and gentlemen. I do agree with that.
Yep.
It also states our department has worked numerous hours on these cases, processed evidence, requested assistance of outside agencies, executed 2 search warrants, performed surveillance, and has worked to protect the integrity of all evidence. Well, it's weird that somebody would make that comment.
There's a reason for
the integrity of all evidence. Now, ladies and gentlemen, with law enforcement history and background, there is something wrong with that phrase. So we're gonna find that out. So we also work hard to keep all potential suspects from knowing what we know. That is why we're not able to release specific details to the family. And
they're not even telling the family
and the
what's going
media.
on. Mm-hmm.
I'm very proud of the work of all members of our criminal investigation division, patrol division, narcotic division, and the administration who has assisted in 2 extremely difficult cases with a non-cooperative victim. So they are not cooperating, but it says victim, not victims. There will be more information released in the case until a criminal indictment is acquired and served. Now, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, that is one way to not have to discuss and talk about the case. Now I can get this out of my mouth. So that's very interesting. So Thomas is like, I had to cover their rear. Okay, yep. Thomas.
Absolutely.
There are a lot of keywords in there. Country boy conversation. Good night. Yes, you're going to have to rewatch it, man. You're going to be on the the edge of your seat when we're done. So, all right, we got that out. Now, while Mr. Decker, is explaining something, he also acquired what else that you presented to me as evidence.
Absolutely. So that's only a part of the puzzle, right? That is only what the sheriff's department was releasing to the media, right? And they kept talking about these autopsies. So the next important piece of information for me to investigate is these autopsies. Okay? So
And
I very simply...
gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, guess what Grizzly and Decker have? We actually have a copy from the Regional Forensic Center of Knox County. Lo and behold. Go ahead, Mr. Decker, while I share this documentation.
So very easily, guys, it's public record. I contacted the Knox County coroners because that's where they do all of the, right out of Knoxville, that's where the state coroner's office is. And I said, I'm looking for the autopsy reports for Tony Aarons, and this is the date of his death, and one for Amber Miller, this is the date of her death. And within a couple of days, I got an email with a PDF copy of each one of their official autopsy reports.
Now, sir, if you're testifying in a court of law, is this confidential information?
This is not confidential. This is public record. Any one of our listeners can go online to the website, make a request, and get this information. You do not need to have any special certification or licensing. You don't have to be an author. You don't have to be law enforcement. It is 100% public record. You do not even have to have a FOIA request.
So, Mr. Decker,
put in the information, and you get it.
You're telling me that anybody on the street can go up and request this information under the Public Information Freedom Act?
That is correct.
And all you have to do is just request it in writing. Is that correct?
That is correct. There's a quick, simple form I filled out online.
Okay, sir, you may continue. I just want to make sure everybody understands how to get this information. It's not hard, ladies and gentlemen.
It is not. You just have to ask the questions and follow the lead and where it takes you. So I'm not a medical expert. I read through it a couple times and I said, well, I kind of get the gist of it, but I need some help. I don't really fully understand what some of these things are explaining to me. So I contacted two people. One of them actually contacted me. My now good friend, Peter Hasty from the United Kingdom. Peter was a ER trauma nurse. So he dealt with cases like this, specifically trauma cases. He wanted to help me do some investigation after he found out I was digging into it. I said, absolutely. So I sent him a copy of each autopsy report. I have another good friend of mine who is a deputy coroner, 30 years search and rescue. He was a captain on the local search and rescue team. He was an EMS and he helped the fire department. I sent it to him, being a deputy coroner. I thought he might be able to provide me some insight in these as well. So I did not go through these by myself. I had two people experienced in the medical world to help me translate and figure out what these autopsy reports were telling me.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, on the behalf and integrity of an investigation, this is public record. And I have an email address down at the bottom. Now, for the audio listeners, that is Grizzly, the paranormal at gmail.com. That is said, once again, Grizzly, the paranormal at gmail.com. If you would like to have a copy of this report, I will personally send it to you. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. That way you can see what we have and what we're looking at. Go ahead, sir.
All right. So the first one we need to look at is Tony, right? We want to do this in chronological order so we can kind of experience this as it happens.
All right. So that's first one was Miller. And
that's Amber Miller. That's our second victim. Yep.
And that's the talk screens on her and all that good information. And let's see here. It's still the same one. Hold up. Uh-oh.
Yep.
Do I got two or one? Stand by here, ladies and gentlemen. Let me check my email. Let me get out of here. I only got one. You have to resend the other one to me. Daggone it.
Okay, no problem. No problem.
I do apologize about that, ladies and gentlemen. I thought they were both combined, but I will still forward them to you because I will have the other one in PDF here in a moment.
I'm sending it right now. Give me 2 seconds. Let me just find my resend button here.
All right, here.
All right. Well, let's take a look at some of the timeline while we're waiting for this to come back through for you.
All right, go back to the press release. Is that what you want me to do? Can you hear me, Mr. Decker? I think he froze.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear it. Can you not hear me?
I hear you. We're good.
All right. Do you want me to go back to the press release?
Yeah, let's go back to the press release while we're waiting for that email to come through.
All right. Stand by, ladies and gentlemen. I am bringing it up. Well, wait a minute. It just got here, and there's nothing onto it, so there's no attachment.
Of course not.
So while he's doing that, yeah, I'll go back to the press release here, and voila, Cocke, and I will hit another button. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if you want a copy of these autopsy reports, do not message me in the comment section. You're going to have to send me an email so I can attach it to it and send it to you that way, because there's no way I'd be able to keep up with all these comments, unfortunately. All right, there we go. But I'd be more than happy to share it. All right, now we got the press release up.
So here's going to be something very, very important we're going to look at.
All right.
Okay? When the Amber Miller attack was on July 12th is when the sheriff's department was notified, correct?
That is correct. July 12th, 2021.
When was the search warrant executed where they actually did DNA tests on the dogs?
Well, that's the one that I couldn't understand, because that didn't happen until July 28th.
16 days later. So they didn't even DNA test. Now, when was the first search warrant executed at Tony's property?
July 19th.
July 19th. Did it say anything in there about DNA being collected from any dogs?
No, sir. It says forensic team with the TBI collecting gathered evidence from the residents and property. That's it.
Okay. So nothing about DNA from dogs. I wonder why they didn't collect DNA from any dogs on Tony's property that day. They waited for another 9 days, and they collected DNA from dogs that it specifically says were owned by other people or from other residences on a different property.
Okay.
Okay, so we need to keep that in mind. In your experience in law enforcement, can you explain that timeline and how that would work with those search warrants?
So, from what I'm gathering, and this is from my experience and from dealing with other cases that involved missing persons, murder cases, and whatnot, in my professional opinion, it looked like either A, somebody really screwed something up really bad, and they didn't do what they were supposed to do the first get around, because anytime that there is an animal attack, there are certain protocols that are required, and the animals are either quarantined or confiscated, and the tests are done there. And they will gather the evidence with photographs if it is a canine involved. And when I mean photographs, I'm talking blood on the animal and so forth, and do the swabs for tissue and whatever else. And then there's I want to say a 12-day waiting period for rabies, I think. Don't quote me on that. It's been a while. I have to look that one back up, ladies and gentlemen. But I think every state should be the same on that one. So now, on the other hand, looking at this, not knowing the case, but looking at the verbiage, they're covering something up that they don't want the public to know.
Right. Absolutely. So
now, I'm just going off what the sheriff's department said, and what the media quoted the sheriff's department.
At this point in my investigation, that's really all I had.
Right.
Right? There was enough here for me to start really questioning what was going on. I also noticed in reading this timeline, the explanations from the sheriff department kept getting a little more like full, right? So at first it was like very, very clipped, very short, right? It was a very small paragraph. This is what happened. Boom, boom, boom. We're investigating it. By the time you get to the end, that's the sheriff quoting, and he's going on about what a great job they're doing. We're not telling people this. We're going to keep the integrity of the case. And he's going on a big, full explanation. Now, there's a reason for that. Because the community was ticked off at this point. Because to them, in all appearances, 2 people had been murdered on their street and nothing was being done about it. The family didn't know anything about it. The neighborhood didn't know anything about it. There was panic going on. That's why they're saying we have no evidence of wild animals or a pack of wild animals or a pack of domestic animals going around attacking people. The neighborhood, the community was scared. But there's another side to that.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I do have Tony A. Aaron's autopsy report from the, let me get my mic up here so I don't have, because I got 3 monitors. So don't forget, we got audio listeners for tomorrow. Regional Forensic Center, Knox County, address 2761 Solon Street, Knoxville, Tennessee, 37919. Phone number, if you want to contact them directly, ladies and gentlemen, I repeat, contact them directly, is 865-215-8000. 865-215-8000. The fax number is 865-215-8001. 865-215-8001 is their fax number. So if you do want to send in a written request, you can also do it by fax. There you go. Now, I have it up here. You want me to read the narrative on here?
Well, first, let me point something out to you real quick. Look up at the top where it has Tony's information. We're going to look on the right-hand side right there where it says date of death. What do we have?
4/1/2021 at 04:02. That's 4 o'clock in the morning, 2 minutes after 4.
All right.
April
what
1st.
What was the date of the autopsy?
That's when I said it was very strange because the date says on here, April 2nd, 2021, 0920, but that does not match up what I read to the audience on the press release in the sheriff's department statement.
Correct. Now, one more date. Right under that, date reported.
July 15, 2021.
Okay.
Now that tells me somebody said on this report.
Somebody said on this report. I wonder why would a coroner office sit on a report?
Well, 2 things. Mass hysteria, number 1. Somebody either made a mistake, didn't do their due diligence when doing an investigation, improperly not collecting the proper evidence while at the crime scene or alleged crime scene. 2, and I hate to say it, ladies and gentlemen, but somebody within the department is not telling us the whole truth, nothing but the truth, and is hiding something from the public view. And I'm sorry, but this is the truth, ladies and gentlemen. Now, I do not know about this case. I'm just going off what he's telling me when I'm being showed and I'm being asked questions. So, okay.
Yep. And that's why we're doing it this way, because I want you guys to understand this is not my opinion at this point. This is what these documents are telling me. It's all right there. It's all right there. All right. So now the narrative there, Grizzly.
All right. The narrative is this 52-year-old man, Tony A. Aarons, died of multiple animal-induced injuries. The manner of the death is accident. Well, that's kind of weird. By report on April 1st, 2021 at 0039 hours, ladies and gentlemen, that is 12:39 a.m. in the morning, Mr. Aarons was found unresponsive in his neighbor's yard in a prone What? Neighbor's yard in Newport, Tennessee by the homeowner. Sorry, I skipped a sentence. He was positioned on his right side with his upper torso somewhat prone. Picture this in your mind, ladies and gentlemen. He had obvious soft tissue injuries concerning from sharp force injuries versus animal canine induced. He had obvious soft tissue injuries concerning for sharp force injuries versus animal canine. Well, that's interesting.
So when I asked my coroner friend, he said that's just fancy talk for saying it was sharp injury from an animal. Because I asked him about that. I said, what does this versus mean? Because it says sharp force injuries versus the
animal canine induced.
Animal canine, right? So what he's saying is that means it's the appearance of cause. So there's sharp force, which means cuts and tears, not blunt object, not gunshot, not knife wounds, right? So it's a sharp force, but instead of a knife, it's animal canine induced. Does that make sense?
Yes, that does. That's very well explained. Now I can buy that. EMS transported him to Newport Medical Center, where he, referring to Tony A. Aarons, was officially pronounced dead at 04:02 hours. That's 4 a.m. in the morning. Scene investigation revealed scattered clothing, paw marks on the soft dirt, and scattered blood on the ground, which was consistent with an animal attack. Now, I have a problem already. Now, we are getting information right here on April 1st of what happened. That does not coincide with the sheriff's department statements or the media's accounts and reports from where they got their information from. So just make that note, ladies and gentlemen. An autopsy revealed many atomentum, I can never say that word, animal-induced injuries, punctures, lacerations, abrasions, contusions, torn veins, and soft tissue loss, particularly involving the left upper extremity. Whether this was one animal or more than one animal, and what type of animal is unknown. No other types of injuries were seen. Examples: gunshot wounds, knife wounds, blunt force, assault, and so forth. Postmortem. Go ahead.
Here's something I want to point out, and I also asked my coroner friend this. Why is it saying where it talks about unknown type of animal? Okay? Because it is not the coroner's job to investigate what type of animal caused the injuries. That's not their job.
Absolutely correct. You are correct. Okay. That is correct information.
Right. All they do is investigate the body, the condition of the body, and report medically what they are finding. Period. That's it. They have no other job. It's not like on TV where they do all this other research and all this investigation. That is not the coroner's job. Okay?
Interesting.
So that's why they're saying an unknown type. They already said they were indicative of canine bites. But canine can be fox, can be wolf, can be dog, could be anything canine. So that's why it specifically says we don't know what type of animal it is.
Post-mortem femoral blood was sent for toxicology analysis and separate tox reports by NSS. So that's standard. That's normal jargon. Final atomic diagnosis: multiple animal-induced injuries, specific animals unknown. I'm still having a problem with that. Animals unknown. Adult male found unresponsive in neighbor's yard.
Specific animals unknown.
Yes, thanks for correcting me. You're absolutely right. It says specific. Tore clothing on body on the ground. Plant and dried blood are seen on the skin. Paw marks and blood on the ground. Now, why is he examining the crime scene?
He's not. So what they get, and you'll see it at the bottom of the autopsy report, they get a summation of the police investigation. So this is kind of an outline of all that kind of stuff.
All right. Extremities, many puncture wounds, lacerations, minor, large, skin, soft tissue loss, left or upper extremity, partial transected left brachial vein, and transected bicylic vein, many abrasions, minor to small, many contusions, minor to large, torso, many abrasions, minor to medium size, several contusions, small to medium. Here's the problem, though. With this report, okay, I was about to say there's no measurements. The measurements are down at the final. Okay,
so what you're looking at right there is kind of a basic outline
Cliff notes.
of the more the cliff notes of the more detailed reports later on.
I'm just used to seeing it in a little different format, but that's all right. No big deal.
Yep.
All right. Head, neck, multiple abrasions, minor to medium size, few puncture wounds, lacerations, minor to small, subgleval, deep and scalp hemorrhage, small. Other findings, hypertensive cardiovascular disease, kinetic left ventricular hypertrophy. So he had some medical problems. Okay. Emphysema and so forth. Okay. External examination. Now, this is where we're going to talk about. This is where I was wanting to see the girth.
Yeah, this is the detail.
Now, it says here, the body is a well-developed, well-nourished adult white male who weighs 177 pounds and 70 inches in length and appears compatible with the state age of 52 years old. So now he's comparing this gentleman compared to the statistics of the average male of the United States of America. Just let you know that. There's a morgue identification band secured around the right leg and a hospital identification band secured around the right forearm. Okay, that's normal. The body was received and clad with glove on the right hand, a belt, 2 pairs of pants, torn, a pair of underwear, 2 pairs of socks, and a shoe on the left foot. Additional personal items that accompany the body are listed on the property and evidence bag. To see that, see the evidence of injury section. The body is cold refrigerated. Rigor mortis is fully fixed. I don't know how to go into details on that. You know what that means, ladies and gentlemen. Slightly blanched, purple red liver mortis extended both over the interior and posterior surface of the body, except in the areas exposed to the pressure. The head was brown with some white hair, stubble. The corneas are translucent. The iris are blue. The pupils are round. The conjunctive and binary congested and the sclera are white. And the left eye has mild red horizontal postmortem drying artifact. Tachnora. No pechial hemorrhages are seen or conjunctive or face. The nose, ears, and lips normally developed. The face is white stubble. The maxilla is indentulous. I got it. The mandibular teeth are natural, irregular, absent, and in poor condition. Poor guy. The throat is well developed and symmetrical. The abdomen is flat. The spine is normal form.
That says the thorax. The thorax is well developed and symmetrical. His upper chest.
That is correct. I do. Thank you. The spine is normal form. The anus is free of any lesions. The external genitalia are those of normal adult male without any trauma. Other changes related to the injury, the upper and lower extremities well developed and symmetrical without any absence of any digits. Without the absence of any digits. Just remember that, ladies and gentlemen. So, because I've heard something else about that. Identifying marks, scars, and tattoos, none. He didn't see any. Therapeutic intervention, none. Nothing was there. Evidence of injury. Description of animal-induced injuries. Plant detritus and dried blood are seen on the skin of the body. The T-shirt and the pairs of pants are torn. The clothing, blood, and paw marks were seen on the ground at the scene. The extremities, the left arm, circumventual skin loss, and severe soft tissue loss with exposed humerus, and the left brachial vein is partially transected. The bosselic vein is transected. The extremities have many red 1/8 inch to 8-inch long puncture lacerations. The extremities has many scattered 1/16 inch to 1 3/4 inch red to dark red abrasions. The posterior aspect of the mid left forearm has a 4 by 4 inch area of skin loss with mild to moderate underlying soft tissue loss. The extremities have many scattered red or purple contusions that measure 1/4 inch to 12 inches in great dimension. The torso here, I'm trying to keep up the comments too. The torso here has scattered 3/16 to 4 inch red to yellow, dark red abrasions. The back, several scattered 1/2 inch to 3.5 inch red purple contusions. The head and neck has several scattered 1/16 to 3 inch dark yellow, red to pink abrasions. The posterior aspect of the neck also has a few 1/8 of an inch to 3/4 inch pink to red punctures, lacerations. The left, the top of the head, are the small discontinued areas of purple D scalp underlying subglobal hemorrhage. And where is the body showing the contusions and the deformations and the marks?
No pictures at all involved in it.
Why is that?
I was never received any photographs. I don't know.
But when you are doing measurements, you have to prove that you took the measurements, and you have to use identifying ruler properly, what they use to measure. So
I don't know if those were considered part of the photographic evidence for the police investigation, so they weren't released to the public. Because remember, this is
you got to forget. I got the police mindset. I'm used to getting that evidence. I do apologize.
Exactly. It's still considered an open investigation, so none of the stuff that's actually being used for the investigation is going to be made available to the public.
Yeah, I forgot, ladies and gentlemen. I'm used to seeing that with this. I do apologize about that. So reference comments in the blood tox, it came back positive for caffeine, cotinine, amphetamine, methamphetamine. Interesting. So it goes down and it talks about nicotine and other things in there. Schedule 2 DA stimulant drug, capable of causing hallucinations, aggressive behavior. So it just talks about the drugs that he was on and what they do to a human body and the after or side effects. So like I said, I will be more than happy to forward this to you. Just send me an email. And I will get it out to you, and it'll show you all the different compounds and everything. Okay. And then it shows his information, background information, cause and manner of death. I hereby declare, this is what I want to see as I'm trying to click on comments. I hereby declare that after receiving this notice of death, I conducted an investigation regarding the cause of death in accordance with Section 38-7-109, and that is Tennessee Code, and a note that information contained in regarding such death is true and accurate to the best of my knowledge and belief. Now, this is signed by Chris Lockmuller. He is the MEC order, he was the chief medical examiner, delegated investigator that did the autopsy on this person. That's what it says here. In reference, his assistant was Lisa Taylor, and ME/C ordered it, and that was the office of, what does ME stand for down there in Tennessee?
ME, medical examiner?
Yeah, oh yeah, that's right. Okay, you're right. Yeah. Okay. So it says narrative summary of circumstances around death. Now, this is, ladies and gentlemen, while I'm trying to click when reading two screens. On April 1st, 2021, approximately 4:41, the time's changed again. The Knox County Regional Forensic was contacted by Detective Daniel Smith with the Cocke County Sheriff's Office. Detective Smith was calling to notify RFC that a district attorney for Cocke County, James Dunn, was sending Tony Allen errands date of birth to the Regional Forensic Center. The following narrative is obtained by the RFC investigator Taylor from Detective Smith. Nursing supervisor is Newport Medical Center. There we go. Interviewed descendants' medical records. Descendants' past medical histories include chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, asthma, chronic bronchitis, and tobacco abuse. Descendant was 52-year-old male Caucasian who was found deceased outside a residence located at blank blank Carnation Way, Newport, Tennessee. The circumstances surrounding whether the descendant was last known alive when he was in the area of the above stated address was unknown at the time of this report. However, the Carnation Way address is reported to be in the same neighborhood as the descendant's home address. That's very interesting. In the early morning hours of April 1st, 2021, the homeowner at the above stated address, Charlie Ownby, spotted the deceased descendant's body in his yard. Mr. Ownby contacted E911 for assistance at 0039, and EMS personnel arrived on scene and confirmed Aristotle. Detective Smith arrived on scene, noted that the descendant had multiple sharp force injuries, both superficial and deep across the entirety of the body. The Detective Smith, further reported that the injuries were likely sustained in a canine attack. However, the incident was not reported to be witnessed, and no dogs were seen or fleeing in the area. Now, how did he know what that was at the time when he arrived on scene?
Right. Well, there's a reason for that, and we can get into that once we start discussing the characters in our drama here.
Detective Smith further reported that the injuries were likely sustained in a canine attack. The descendant was transported to Newport Medical Center and officially pronounced deceased by Dr. Vincent Hockenwagen on April 1st, 2021 at 4:02. No admission blood was obtained. Due to found outside with possible entorium trauma, the descendant was transported to Regional Forensic Center for examination by a forensic pathologist.
Yep.
And of course, they did a drug test on him. So they ran it through the database to make sure that's normal. All right. So that one's down in the hole. When that's dated April 1st, 2021.
Yep. So that is basically the official police report attached to the initial investigation and the autopsy is basically what that boils down to. Now, the way I sum it up is pretty simple. Tony was tore up pretty good.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Tony was tore up so bad. If you notice, it talked about it nicked a couple of pretty big veins and transected them, which means they were cut, and he bled out.
That is presumable to be correct.
Yeah, so that's what they're talking about there. They didn't find any gunshots, any blunt force trauma, anything else. It was strictly he was chewed up pretty good, and they're saying, it looks like it was canines. There was paw prints on the ground, but other than that, we have no idea what happened. That pretty much sums it up. Okay.
That is correct.
That's Tony. Now, again, the part that confused me was he died on the 1st. The autopsy was on the 2nd. It wasn't released until later in July. Now,
that is also correct.
I'm under and this is an assumption, and I got no problem saying it's an assumption at this point. I think somebody asked them to not make the official report yet until they did a little more digging and finding out what was going on. That's my assumption based on the totality of my investigation.
Somebody held on to it for a reason, yes.
Yep, that's what I'm thinking. Okay, so this is Tony. Now, I just want to say again, when it came to Tony, I was contacted by people that knew him, that worked with him in the day-to-day. Tony was trying to better his life. He had been in a bad spot, unfortunately, with methamphetamine in his system. He was still using a little bit, not judging him at all. Okay? And so that's what was going on.
So Laurel's got a question. So anytime there is a death, whether it is on the streets, a vehicle, or homicide, murder, suicide, they always do a talk screen. Just to let you know a
That
little.
is, yep, that is standard procedure as far as I know.
Has anyone talked with the coroner, or where does the coroner come from? Yeah, he comes from Tennessee.
Yep.
Are you talking about his credentials? That I don't know, because it don't say on here what his credentials are. So, and a coroner is an elected position.
A coroner is not the medical examiner and is not the guy that does the autopsy.
That's why I said a coroner is an elected position.
Yep. So that's poor Tony. Again, the daughter reached out and was saying basically he was trying to get his life back together. He was working hard. His coworker said he was a reliable coworker. He had been in the wrong spot. He was, according to what they said, he went to Charles' house specifically to kill a dog, to kill a dog or some dogs, just to kill dogs that get revenge on being bit while he was at Charles' house. That's what I was told by people that knew him. The next day, he ends up dead, attacked by dogs, according to the autopsy report we just saw, showing that he was killed by canine attack.
That is correct.
Okay, those are facts. And then what I was specifically told by people that knew of what happened the day before Tony ended up dead.
All right. And Mr. Decker, stand by. We'll be right back.
All right.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of Paranormal and Cryptid Rabbit Holes. We got Mr. Decker with us. This edition is brought to you by Western Kentucky Bigfoot and Paranormal Investigations, LLC, Mr. Don Wyden. Thank you, sir, for another great edition. So, yeah, so this is really getting interesting. No mention of weapons found.
No weapons at all. Well, at this point, I'll say no knives, no guns, nothing like that.
So, yeah. Not Yolanda. All right. So now where we're going?
All right. Well, now we got to look at poor Amber.
All right. Stand by, ladies and gentlemen. I think I've got her already pulled out. Let me hit a couple of buttons.
Just want to shout out real quick. Was that Laurel that just said that they were an ex-user?
Yes, that is correct.
Hey, listen, good on you for getting off that stuff. Congratulations. I'm proud of you. Good job.
Very hard, and I'm glad you're not a statistic.
Absolutely.
That's something it's not easy to do. All right, stand by, and autopsy number 2. And here it is, ladies and gentlemen. Amber B. Miller, age 29. White female. All right, where do you want me to start?
Well, this poor girl was tore up so much more worse than Tony was. She managed to survive the attack. I can't even imagine what this girl went through. She survived about 2 weeks in the hospital before she succumbed to systemic organ failure. Basically, infection got so bad in her body that her organs began shutting down one by one, and she ended up losing her life after this horrific ordeal that she lived through. It's a lot more graphic in this autopsy report, just to give you guys a heads up. There's a lot more damage done to Amber. Okay? So just to give you guys a heads up on that. But we'll do the same thing like we did with Tony, kind of go through it. There's a lot more to it, so I'll leave it up to you if you want to read through the whole thing. There are definitely some key points in there, though, that people are kind of latching on to.
Well, I'll tell you what, due to the graphic nature of this, I will supply the report, like I said, to anybody that wants it. I'll put up the email. We're just going to cover the highlights of it. Okay. Because it's very graphic, and this is the first time I'm looking at this. So let me throw up the email address one more time, and then I will cover what he wants to cover, and I will read what needs to be read. And and there we go. There's the email address. All right. I'm ready.
Okay. So we'll go ahead and go through the narrative, because I'll give us an idea of what's going on.
This 29-year-old white female. Let me get my mic up to my face so I'm not stretching. Amber Miller died of complications of multiple organ system failure following a vicious dog attack. The witness stated that approximately 3 dogs attacked Miss Miller in the front yard of a local residence. In the same location, another individual was found bitten and mauled apparently by animals, which were suspected to be dogs at the time of this investigation. The manner of the death is accident.
Okay, wait a minute. What did that just state? Another individual.
It sure did.
Okay. Was that anywhere in the press releases?
No, it was not.
Absolutely not. So now we have a witness.
Not only that, it also said suspected to be dogs at the time of the investigation.
Approximately 3 dogs. So now they have an idea of what's going on, and now they have a witness of what's going on. And I will reiterate, I believe I know who that witness is, and I was able to get their story secondhand, because at the time I came across who this person was, he had already been deceased. So the witness in question, unfortunately, is no longer with us, but I got the story from somebody who said they heard it from that witness directly.
All right.
Okay.
Now, these are facts, ladies and gentlemen. This is what's written, which you all can have a copy of. I don't mind sending it. The external examination, I'm not going to read. It's very graphic. So, evidence, therapeutic intervention, will not read that.
Yep. Well, here's the thing on here that we want to catch on. One of the things going around in the community is that her arm was tore off. That is incorrect. That is an incorrect interpretation of the information. Okay? Her arm was not tore off. She did have injuries to her shoulder, exposing the muscle and shoulder joints. It was unable to be reattached, and so they amputated it, cleaned it up, and attempted to reattach her arm, but they were unsuccessful. It did not take. Yeah, right there. Yeah, right where you're highlighting.
Yeah, the left extremity has been amputated. It says on number 10 of the autopsy report has been amputated. Number 9, I'll read this. The front and lateral aspect of the right arm and forearm, along with the elbow region, demonstrated a large muscle-deep, extensive trauma with subsequent dememberment of necrotic tissue, which is approximately 13.5 inches long and up to 5 inches long in circumference.
I'm going to stop you right there.
With that just saying to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, this is an infection.
Correct. Debridement of necrotic tissue means that the bites, the wounds themselves were becoming infected, And so debridement means they were clearing away the infected tissue in an attempt to stop the infection from spreading in her body. Okay. Now remember, the autopsy is the condition of the body as the medical office received it, not at the time of the attack. That's key on this. This is key for reading this. Okay. She has several very large wound areas, like this one described here. But it states specifically the size of the area is due to the clearing away of necrotic, which is dead tissue, and that is done to stop the spread of the infection within the body.
That is a fact. The superior margin extends over the posterior proximal right arm, distal inferior border of the anterior aspect of the main wound. Proximal to anterior right wrist, there is another deep oval ungulated laceration, evidence of subsequent debridement, 1.3 inches in the greatest dimension. The remaining strip of preserved skin on the inner and proximal aspect of the right arm is merely 1 inch wide. The upper left extremity has been amputated, and that is to try to save the spread of the infection, I assume. The amputated right shoulder leaves an open wound, which is loosely approximately a surgical strings, measures 8 inches by 3 inches. The wound is very deep and unveils the underlying skeletal muscle in the right shoulder joint. So it does not tell me that the arm was ripped from the body. It tells me it's been amputated.
Yep. All right, and so then let's go down to number 11. This is another big part. Number 11.
All right, got to highlight it. Number 11 states a large portion of the anterior, lateral, and post-lateral right lower extremity is involved with the debrided area of animal. Why did it says animal? Okay.
Depredation, yep.
Right, at least 18 inches long. The widest area of debridement around the distal right thigh measures 10 inches. I'm actually picturing this. The skin margins underlying necrotic muscle in the base of the wounds are gray brownish color due to necrosis, separate from the main wound involving the posterior proximal right thigh. There is a horizontal, elongated, deep derived laceration, 4 inches in the greatest dimension, in the knee and approximately right leg region. The injury and subsequent debridement are fully circumventional. I can never talk when I'm tired. Due to the main wound involving the posterior and lateral right leg, there are multiple deep linear and triangular cuts and puncture wounds consistent with canine-induced trauma. Across the upper aspect of the right heel, there is a transverse deep laceration, 1.2 inches long. Distal to it, involving the plantar aspect of the right foot, there are multiple canine-induced cuts, puncture wounds, and lacerations. Two of the longest lacerations are approximately 1 inch long each. Go ahead.
Okay. So what they're describing is basically on her leg, okay, a huge wound area. But again, it describes in the autopsy report the size of the wound is due to the debridement of the tissue.
That is correct.
Right? So I'm not making that up. That's not my opinion. That is the report from the autopsy from the medical examiner doing his job. Okay? And then as you go through, and if our viewers want to get the report and go through it, they'll find more of the same. But those were the two main things I wanted to point out on this poor girl. Her arm was not ripped off. Yes, it was severely damaged and torn at the shoulder, but it was not ripped off in the attack. And these large wounds on her body from the medical report are due to them trying to save her life and cutting away the tissue. That is common medical procedure. All right. If you've ever had an infection, a wound, they will sacrifice body parts to save the body as a whole. That's just part of it. And then that's what was going on. Remember, she was in the hospital for about 2 weeks. And they were trying to save her life for those 2 weeks while she was going through this excruciating pain of basically her body rotting away from these attacks and then her organs ultimately shutting down and failing. Okay. So you have the tox report there.
Yeah, I got it highlighted.
Okay.
But the problem I have the tox report, they do administer fentanyl in the emergency room
Yep.
and in the ER.
Yep.
So
So that's explained. That's explained.
methamphetamine, that is a kind of a high dose.
Yep.
Anthramphetamine, that's kind of a high dose. Now the hydromophone. Oh, now I'm gonna start rapping here in a minute. That's probably pain medicine administered in the hospital. I'm just assuming this, ladies and gentlemen. Now, they do not give methamphetamine and amphetamine in hospital.
No.
So, just letting you know that.
Those are stimulants. And if you scroll down, reference comments, it tells you what everything is and where it comes from.
That is correct.
Okay. So it tells you what the amphetamine is. It tells you where the fentanyl comes from and what it is. And so that kind of explains the chemicals found in the body.
Right.
Okay.
I concur to that.
All right. So now we have our autopsy reports, okay? At this point, I'm convinced in my investigation that this was done by dogs. Okay? My point of my research in getting the autopsy reports was to see if this was dog-man related or not. Because the community at large and a few different podcasters out there were pushing this.
She had a lot of narcotics in her system. Did you know that?
Yes, she did.
Amber was cannabis, barbiturates.
Amber was a known drug user.
That's evident by what I just highlighted.
Absolutely. She was. And it's right there in the system. Again, they don't do this to like look down on anybody or cast shade on anybody. This is simply the results of the blood tox screen, which is standard procedure on any autopsy. Okay. Now, that paragraph is interesting because I found some information pertinent to that paragraph in my next step of my investigation.
All right. So I'm going to read the whole narrative because there's some things in here that you all need to know about that I just read that I did not highlight. On July 18th, 2021, approximately 1830, that's 6:30, right? 12:06, yeah, 6:30. Yep. Knox County Regional Forensic Center, RFC, was contacted by Candace Smith, RN, and that's a nurse, the Trauma Surgical Unit at University of Tennessee Medical Center, UTMC for short. Nurse Smith was calling to report death of Amber B. Miller, date of birth, blank, 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 blank. Here is the following narrative summary of the information that was obtained by the investigator, Cocke County, from Nurse Smith. The descendant had a past medical history to include drug use, hepatitis C, and HIV. Yep. There are no known history or suspicion of foul play. The descendant was 29 years old, Caucasian female, who was admitted to the University Medical Treatment Center in Tennessee on July 12th. 2021 at 1408 as a transfer from Newport Medical Center first via Lifestar. That's by helicopter, I'm assuming. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yep, that is correct. Lifestar is the helicopter system around here.
Okay. The descendant was found by a bystander lying in the front yard of a house located at blank blank Carnation Way in Newport, Tennessee, with 3 dogs standing around her.
That is correct. I want to take note of that. That I found something out about that, and it's not what you guys think. So we'll finish reading, and we'll come back to that.
The bystander transported the descendant via personal vehicle to Newport Medical Center. The descendant was diagnosed with several puncture wounds to the thorax, the abdomen, and a multiple laceration on all 4 extremities. The descendant's left upper extremity was amputated. Approximately 40% of her skin was gone. The descendant was pronounced 42%. Was gone. The descendant was pronounced dead on July 18th, 2021 at 1700 by Dr. Samuel Bogratis. It was reported by Detective Daniel Smith with the Cocke County Sheriff's Office that the dogs were possibly involved with a Mastiff, a Canine Corso, a Shepherd / Pit Bull mix, He states that when he spoke with her in the hospital of the incident, she stated that she fell into a bush. A previous death was a possible dog attack that also occurred in April 2021 at the same address. Due to the injuries sustained from the animal activity, the defendant was transported to the Regional Forensic Center for examination by a forensic pathologist, Cocke County Medical Examiner's Office, and ordered an autopsy. A controlled substance monitoring databases were well, that's just normal.
Yep.
Okay.
So now we have our players in this whole scenario, right? So we have Tony, who is a known drug user. Again, not throwing any shade on him. Okay. We have Charles Owensby, property owner. We have mysterious dogs or canines, and we have Amber Miller, same address or same area. I'll get to that. A known drug user with mysterious dog attack. Okay? So, the one connecting factor that we have in all this is what? Mr. Charles Owensby.
That is correct.
Correct. Makes sense, right? If you look up Mr. Charles and do an investigation on him, he is a suspected drug dealer. He has a history of violence. If you look up his social media, he professes to be a dog trainer, as well as his son. And his social media name, at least at one point when I was investigating it, was, you're going to love this, Dogman.
Really?
Dogman. Yep. So, in my mind, at this point, it's a given. We know what happened here. Somehow they all tangled up with Charles in the wrong way. Okay? In my eyes, I'm done investigating this because I'm good. I'm good. I've done my research, talked to my people, got my autopsy reports. I'm convinced of what's going on. I feel anybody else who does any reasonable bottom research is going to come to the same conclusion as me. All right? And honestly, at this point, it really wasn't that hard. Again, I'm not some special investigator. I don't have any type of special investigation training. I'm not ex-law enforcement. I'm not a medical person. I'm just a lay guy that is curious and asks a lot of questions.
But the problem I'm having with this whole concept, though, is that there are information that shouldn't be here that's present that wasn't in the original information from the get-go.
Correct. I agree. And I'm figuring it's a case of Keystone Cops, right?
Okay.
Now, the Newport Sheriff's Department in Cocke County, Tennessee, is not known for being the most upstanding, upright, truthful, and honest sheriff's department in the country. Okay? Newport itself is not known for being the most upright, outstanding, honest government city officials in the country. That's just a fact. Okay? But at this point, I'm going, regardless of all that, I can see pretty much probably what happened here, so I'm done. Well, then I start seeing a couple more podcasts going about how people are claiming this is Dogman attacks. Without a doubt, this is Dogman, and there's a cover-up. This is Dogman, there's a cover-up. And I'm starting to hear information that I haven't heard yet. I heard information about somebody, apparently the TWRA, which is the Tennessee Wildlife Research people, basically the DNR people out here, Department of Natural Resources, the people that handle the bears and stuff like that, supposedly was called in and found the largest dog print he had ever seen measure 9 inches by something. So I got on these YouTube channels of these podcasters, and I said, that's awesome. I've researched this too. Where'd you get your information from? I'd love to know, because I'm researching this as well. Never heard back from anybody. Not one. So I had some people ask me about this because they know how to research it. And finally I said, you know what? I'm kind of tired of this, because all these podcasters are really doing, Grizzly, is reading the newspaper reports. Like when you watch the podcast, that's all they're doing is reading the headlines and highlighting the newspaper reports. And I'm going, well, that's not an investigation. What the heck is going on? So I decided to take my investigation one step further. I reached out to the community. I got on social media, on Facebook, to some local sites for Newport, Tennessee, and Cocke County. And I said, hey, guys, there's a lot of rumors going around about these incidents. I'm researching the truth of what really happened. I'm trying to find the truth. Anybody has anything they want to tell me, just message me. Just message me. The response I got was overwhelming. It was absolutely overwhelming. Now, most of the stuff I got was, thank you for researching this. You know, Amber and Tony need justice. I got responses saying, we all know who did it. We all know who's responsible. Why aren't the police doing anything? I got responses of, we're afraid to go out at night. Okay, this is the community coming to me. But there's a few people that actually had good information for me. The first one that contacted me was a young lady named Alicia. I'm still friends with her on Facebook. She told me about these 3 dogs that were supposedly seen around the body. Now, the information I got, and then the media reported, like in the news, did not state that the dogs were a Mastiff, a Cane Corso, which is a type of Mastiff, and a German Shepherd mix. Those were not the dogs, according to the witnesses, standing around the body. Alicia contacted me and said, no, what the media had talked about was a German Shepherd and a Lab, I believe it was, standing around the body licking the wounds. Okay? Now, mind you, Amber was still alive. And if the dogs had been attacking her, she was still alive, why would they no longer be in a fury and just licking her wounds? That didn't make sense to me.
They would have dropped them.
Exactly. That don't make sense, right? So what Alicia described to me was actually a couple of stray dogs that were well known in the neighborhood, that were nonviolent, that people would feed, and that there's no way that those dogs in question that were seen with Amber would have ever done that. All right. That makes sense to me. So now I'm questioning, okay, wait a minute. What really happened here? What happened there? Now, I'm not really thinking about Tony at this point. I'm focusing on Amber. Well, then I was contacted by another young lady named Amy. And she was like, hey, did you hear about a third attack victim? And I said, no, I did not. Please tell me what happened. So she was telling me about her friend who goes by the name Tubbs. Now, at this point, it had been about 1.5 years since the incident with Amber. Tubbs is not a local, but he was up visiting the area. And Tubbs was there. Tubbs is the witness. And I got the copies of the text messages from Tubbs to Amy, talking about how he was there when that poor girl Amber was killed. Okay? He wouldn't talk about it over text, but they met later in that week, and he told her in person his story. Okay? And then she related to me to the best of her knowledge. Now, when she first started telling me the story, she was trying to really recollect what he had said. And at first, it really sounded like it was a separate incident. It was a third attack. But as I was questioning her about the statement she was giving me, she had said a couple things that made me clarify a few things, and then she realized that it was all happened in the same night. Okay? So here's the story once I discussed with her and it was relayed to me. Now, there are a few things that I feel are a little bit inaccurate, but again, this is coming secondhand from somebody, all right? But the premise of the story is Amber was there that night to visit Tubbs. Tubbs was a relation to Charles Owenby. They were there that night partying, doing drugs, having a good time, hanging out. Okay? Tubbs went outside to let a couple of the dogs out to use the restroom. The dog started, for some reason, going after Tubbs. He started hollering and shouting that the dogs were on him. Amber and Charles came outside and were fighting the dogs off of Tubbs. The dogs then turned from Tubbs to Amber, and they started attacking Amber. Now I'm going to pause here real quick. Notice I haven't said anything specific about the dogs yet and what they are and who they are. Here's the description I got. Possibly up to 5 dogs. All right. 2 cane corsos. Cane corsos are Italian mastiffs. And depending on which source you look at, they are within the top 5 or top 10 most aggressive dog breeds in the world. Okay? There is an English Mastiff. There is a Pit Bull mix and a German Shepherd mix. So I specifically have at least 5 dogs there that I was told they're breeds. Okay? Now, as I said before, Charles is a known dog trainer. Not only does he train dogs, he trains dogs to be attack dogs and guard dogs. This is what he does. Okay? These are huge, massive dogs that have been trained to attack. And they all live together. What happens when you have a bunch of dogs that live together? They're a pack. Okay? Charles Owensby, if you look him up, one time had an altercation with the man and threatened to kill him. And a police officer showed up to talk to him. Apparently, Charles had threatened to sick one of his dogs on somebody and have the dog kill him. This is in Charles' police record. Okay? These are not house dogs. These are not your friendly neighborhood pet. These dogs were specifically trained to be aggressive and to be attacked and to work as a pack. Okay? So now these dogs were attacking Tubbs. They have now turned on to poor Amber. So now we have Tubbs and Charles trying to get the dogs off of Amber. And it's not going very well. From my understanding, Tubbs grabbed a pipe and was beating the dogs off with some kind of pipe. It was so bad that, according to the report that I got, Charles got a gun and shot one of the dogs dead there on the spot. Eventually, Amber was able to escape and run down the gravel road that Charles lives on to the main road, which is Jimtown Road, which is where she was picked up. While she's down there escaping, Tubbs and Charles are back up at Charles's house working on containing these dogs. That's the story that I was told. And I believe the evidence in the autopsy reports, the history of Mr. Owenby, really shows that that is a very plausible scenario. I cannot say definitively, of course. I wasn't there. I didn't see it happen. But that is the scenario as it was told to me as to what happened that night to poor Amber. And I can't imagine. If you have 2 cane corso dogs, 2 massive mastiffs, plus the other dogs attacking you, grabbing you, one by the arm, one by the leg, shaking you around like you're a rag doll, I mean, those kinds of injuries that they're talking about are very easily sustainable. Yeah. That is the story of what I was told that happened to Amber. So I started looking into Charles, and I had people sending me information about Charles. Okay? Now, I want to put out there, none of this stuff I can verify. I can only tell you what I was told, right? I can only tell you what people have told me. I cannot say any of this is 100% true. And what's that legal term they always say? Everybody is innocent until proven guilty.
Guilty in a
right?
court of law. Yeah.
There you go. Okay, so I want to put that out there. But this is the information as it was told to me. That Mr. Charles, while he was a known drug dealer in the area, was also a police informant. That he worked with the sheriff's department. That he assisted in some way in training sheriff's department or police department, some sort of law enforcement department, canine units.
That's the connection.
That's the connection. Now, this was told to me by a few different people, not just one person. Multiple people reached out to me and said that Charles was connected to the sheriff's department. They knew who he was. They were very familiar with him and his dogs, and that he had assisted them in multiple different ways in the past.
So, with the evidence you provided from the media and the sheriff's department, it is alleged fear that the blowback of their relationship with this individual and the maulings of these individuals that taken place is in the death is going to have repercussions on the department because of the times.
Absolutely.
That's why 2.5 years later, or 2 years, going on 2 years later, it's still open and not closed and under investigation.
Correct.
Because that way you do not have to disclose any future information or any facts or anything else regarding the case.
Yep.
Is you don't want to jeopardize the investigation that's ongoing.
Yep.
So that's very interesting.
Let's pull up that timeline again, Grizzly. Let's pull up that media report timeline. Now we're going to analyze that and see what that tells us. In the light of maybe the sheriff's department had something to hide.
It's already proven that, but yeah, I'll entertain that.
Yep, let's take a look. And well, because again, that's not good enough for me. Just people telling me. I want to be able to solidify what I'm thinking, right? Because I'm a researcher. I'm not just going to go, well, somebody said so, and that's that, right?
No, totally agree.
So let's pull up that timeline and let's do a little digging on what we do know. Because remember, that's the only information the sheriff's department is really giving out at all is those media releases.
All right, I got it.
Okay. Come up on the screen. So, two things we want to really look at first. Tony Aaron's, yeah, whatever, something happened. We're digging into it. We don't know. But we know Charles was automatically implicated because it was in his yard. You have the background in there. He's going to be the first suspect to look at. Well, we also know that Tony trains vicious, aggressive dogs. And it appears that Tony was killed by dogs. So already, I believe the sheriff's department know what happened. Which is why I believe that report for the autopsy may have been asked to be held up a little bit. Because it wasn't released till 3 months later when it was actually reported. Again, my speculation from the timeline and evidence that I have. Okay? But after Amber, the neighborhood is shook. Same thing happened again. I believe the sheriff's department went to Tony and said, hey, listen, this is a problem now. You either have to get rid of them dogs or we're going to do something. Okay. So then they give him a little bit of time and they execute that warrant on his property. Nothing happened in that on that search.
The warrants are irrelevant because the time lapse from the incident, the time the warrant was served, it's irrelevant at this point.
It wouldn't do any good, right?
Right.
Okay, so now
it's a dog and pony show.
Exactly. Well, now we get to the second search warrant. Okay? Where was the second search warrant served? Not on Tony's house, on his ex-wife's house. Because Tony had gone into hiding.
That is correct. On July 28th.
That's what they reported. Now, I believe, and this is what I was told from the social media, the neighbors, the neighborhood, the people around knew Charles was responsible for this. They knew Charles was at fault and it was his dogs. They knew this. They were mad because the sheriff's department wasn't doing anything about it. The family knew this. They knew where Amber was. They know Charles' history. They know Charles' reputation. People were afraid of him, of his reputation, of his anger, of his dogs. They knew what had happened, which is why we see in the police reports about rumors and we're not going to do anything without the facts and the neighborhood and all this kind of stuff. That's why they responded that way in the later reports, in the later releases there. Okay, so here we go. We're at Charles's ex-wife's house. Now, mind you, on July 28th, and Amber was reported attacked on July 12th.
That is correct.
16 days. So 16 days after the attack, they come to the house of the ex-wife looking for Charles. I keep saying Tony, looking for Charles. And they decide to execute a warrant looking for DNA. Why are we looking for DNA? We're trying to assign blame for Amber's attack on these dogs. And the only way to do that is DNA evidence, right? Hence, where they keep talking about in the reports, we're relying heavily on the forensic evidence. Never mind, we have a witness that they've stated that they have to the events, who was also mauled, who came forward and talked to the cops. The friend Amy that got a hold of me about Tubbs told me, now mind you, I didn't discuss any of this part with Amy. I was just getting her story. I did not tell her what I already knew. She told me, after much talking with him, she convinced him to go to the police department or the sheriff's and tell them the story of what happened. And he did. So they knew from a witness, which is stated in the documentation that we have here tonight, the whole story of what happened. And yet, it took 16 days to execute a search warrant where Charles was hiding out at his ex-wife's house. They say in the statement, well, what's the wording on here? Where it talks about the DNA, where they got the DNA. So scroll up to the next page there. Okay. Officers with the SWAT team. Oh, too far. Okay. And collected DNA from 2 other dogs at the location that belonged to other people in 2 separate residences at that property. They knowingly took DNA from dogs that were not even known to be associated with Charles or the property. Does that make sense?
No.
Not at all. So 2 things in that. For one, it's been 16 days since her attack. There would be no viable DNA evidence left on an animal after 16 days, especially if we're collecting DNA from stool samples or from the insides of their mouth. Potentially, I could see there maybe being a chunk of flesh stuck up behind a tooth somewhere, maybe in the back, that maybe had not been deteriorated by the saliva and the 16 days worth of other food that they had been eating. I mean, to me, any DNA collected would be contaminated anyway. There's no way it would be viable for identification purposes. But again, I'm not a scientist. I don't really know. But when I did my research on this, the digestive system of a large dog takes 24 to 48 hours to pass a meal. So at most, they had 2 days to collect any evidence from stool samples. Now, I have heard people state Charles's dogs were confiscated and their intestines or their digestive tract, their stomach, was examined, and there was no DNA or any human flesh found within their systems. I want to know where that information came from. Because as far as we know, they never even looked at Charles's dogs because these were other people's dogs. I have reached out to the sources I've heard that from, and they refuse to answer me. Charles's dogs have never, ever, ever been reported to have been confiscated, examined, or in any other way investigated by the sheriff's department.
Has the sheriff's department bought any dogs from this person?
I do not know. I do not know. All we know is, according to the people in the area, the dogs got disappeared. That's all we know. It then goes on to say about DNA was collected from a dog on a shallow grave on the property. Now, a family member of Charles came out and said the dog in question was a puppy that had died several months earlier and was buried on the property. So again, has absolutely nothing to do with the case. But they still took DNA from it. They also confiscated an aggressive dog on the property. That was reported. There was a newspaper report about it. There was a picture. I don't know if it was a stock photo or is actually the dog that was confiscated. But that's where the story ends for this dog. I could find zero information on what happened to that aggressive dog that was taken from the property. There was no follow-up on it, nothing about the release of this dog, nothing about the destruction of this dog. That is where the story ends with that dog. So, my belief, and I believe this timeline and this evidence bears this out, they were under so much pressure from the community, they had to do something. So they executed what they knew would be a fruitless search warrant, collecting DNA to attempt to exonerate their informant of any possible wrongdoing, to allow the case to remain open so they do not have to release any of the information at all, other than the media releases. Nobody can access the information through FOIA or any other way because it's an ongoing investigation. That is where I believe the cover-up is happening. I do not believe this incident, these two incidences, were dogman attacks. I do not believe there is a government cover-up covering dogman attacks in these two cases. I believe it is the local government covering up their connection to a man responsible for the deaths of Tony and Amber. And I believe that it's going to stay that way, and there will not be justice for Tony and Amber in these cases.
After 2 years, I don't see anything coming down the pipeline.
Because where is new information going to come from if they've already been given an eyewitness account of what happened that night? They already know what happened, and they're not going to let it out.
My question, did the guy sell the department any dogs?
As far as I know, he is still out there and still at his property and living life as normal, still in the area. Nobody knows what happened to the dogs. Last I looked into it, last I heard, they're gone. I believe he disposed of them because if he didn't, I believe the sheriff's department would either have to do it themselves or they would have to just go ahead and press charges against him for manslaughter or whatever the case may be for him being the owners of these trained dogs. So I think he chose to get rid of the dogs, and then the sheriff's department chose to cover it up because he got rid of the dogs. And I am 98% convinced that the evidence bears that out. If anybody can come forward with any evidence or any more information, I am willing to look into it and amend my theory and adjust what my thought process is on it. But it has to be evidence. It has to be legit. It has to be documented. We can't just go, oh, no, it was a dog man. I know it was because these things happen. Well, I believe they do happen. I do believe there are cases out there where dogmen have attacked and killed people. I am a firm believer in that. But I do not believe that is the case with Tony and Amber. The evidence just isn't there. And that's what we have to go by. We have to go where the evidence leads us.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I threw up there the Tennessee Penal Code, whatever they call it in Tennessee, 44-17-120, talks about how the owner of any attack dogs, destructive dogs, and you can look that up, Google that, it says Tennessee statute provides that any dog which attacks a human and causes death or serious injury may be destroyed upon order of the circuit court where the attack occurred. So that's the statute for Tennessee, and it goes into great detail. I suggest you want to look it up and read it because that was not followed.
Nope.
So my father, who is an attorney from Jefferson City, Tennessee, said never, ever drive through Newport, Tennessee at night. It's been a bad area for years. Wow.
Absolutely. Listen, Newport is kind of the butt of the jokes around here. Yeah, I used to work in Newport. I was a manager at a restaurant there. I know the people there. I have friends there. That's why I started researching this, guys. This is my backyard. I am literally 20 minutes away from Newport, Tennessee. And it is true that, like I said before, the town is known for corrupted officials. It is known for excessive drug use, for drug dealers. It's a sad state of affairs, but that's what Newport is known for in this whole area, for counties around. So the puzzle pieces fit. They really do.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
I do not think, but preponderance of evidence that's been provided, I don't think it's a dogman attack. I think there's deeper ties with the dog owner and relationship somehow. Mm-hmm. Allegedly, let's say relationships.
Yep. And it's sad because the family of Amber and the family of Tony are not going to get the justice they deserve. And I think that's the worst part of this whole thing. I really do.
Anybody got any questions? Comments? Laurel,
That's a fair way to put it. I mean, there's a lot of great people in Newport. There's a lot of great people in Newport. I wouldn't necessarily refer to it as a little country town, but it's a sad state of affairs. It really is.
Laura, when I lived there, it was pretty quiet at night and in the day. I've hardly ever saw local law enforcement pull anybody over except for in the Walmart parking lot. Well, that's all right.
Well, let's put this caveat on there, okay? It's not inner city Detroit. It's not inner city Chicago. It's not. Overall, there's a lot of great people in Newport. There really is. But there has sections of town where I'm not going to go at night. And I'm a pretty tough dude. I'm not scared of much, but I'm not stupid either. I used to live in the hood of downtown Tampa. Okay? But I know better than to put myself in situations that I don't want to be put in, right?
Yeah, I do agree with that. D-Worm, I think, from my understanding how things work, I think there's more ties with them and law enforcement. And yeah, like buying a canine.
Well, I don't know if he bought any canines from him. The information that I received was that he assisted somehow in the training of the canines for the law enforcement officers. I don't know to what extent. I don't know the capacity of it, so I'm not going to try and speculate on that. But there is a connection there.
Hey there, Irene. Welcome to the show. That's a lot of shows in one day, Grizzly. Yeah, man. I roll them out sometimes. Absolutely. So you worked at an appliance factory there, Laurel. So, and Irene, yeah, you don't go looking for trouble. I never go looking for trouble. It always comes looking for me. So, dang, that stinks. But the reason why I say what I said is that if you look at the totality of everything, there is a deeper entanglement somewhere along those lines between him and that department, allegedly somehow. Yeah. Because if you look at the releases of the department issue statements in the reports that were covered by the agency's news outlets, and compared to the autopsy reports, and how they all contradicted each other in a format, time format, it doesn't all add up. And especially when somebody, usually when you have a body that's been looked at and examined, you usually get the results within 24 to 48 hours. Unless you got a backlog in a big city and you got them stacked in the freezer. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, but that's a known fact.
But the autopsy was performed the very next day. So it wasn't it wasn't a case of we didn't get to the body fast enough. It was we performed the autopsy in April, but officially wasn't reported until July. Why? I don't know. There's a lot of stuff in this case that doesn't add up. Like you said, I agree 100%. But what does add up does not add up to a dogman attack, in my opinion.
So Irene, Mr. Decker, hit a nail with the hammer.
Oh, look at that.
So I actually, Irene, without knowing the facts of the case, went to my panel with people with abilities and provided a picture of Amber to 4 different individuals. And they had problems with the case because they never worked on a case like this before. And they told me it was not a human involved and it was not supernatural. They were confused. So they had to figure it out themselves. Because when you remote view and you douse and you do your whatever abilities on a case, there is a format that they use and they go by to get their information. Just like a detective or investigator. So a lot of discrepancies in the final report, and overall, Irene, as a whole, that's the issue. So yes, Laura, I know it's late, but we wanted to make sure and get this out there because there is a lot of people out there that think and thought that this was a dogman attack, and I was actually one of them because of the rumor mill amongst the community. This could be another LBL.
Right.
So, but with the evidence I've seen that's been shown and documented, the inaccuracies and so forth, I don't think it's supernatural. I think there's more ties that runs a little deeper than people wanted to acknowledge and come out. That's why I asked, is it known if they actually, yeah, I'll send you a picture of her. That's not a problem. I've got it. I sent to everybody else. Be more than happy to share it. So, but, you know, it's just makes you wonder. And that's why I said, because when departments buy animals, they have to show documentation where they get the animals from. Then they have to go show where they get them trained and so forth, and certifications before they are actually department approved by the agency and so forth to work. And the reason why that is because liability reasons. Now, yeah, I know people in Kentucky and Lexington that actually train department dogs to attack and to take down men when they run and hurt other law enforcement officers. So yes, that is correct. So that was my question, because if you had ties with somebody and this actually happened and you were doing business allegedly, I'm not saying it was or did not or did happen, because I don't know, but if he actually allegedly did train any of their dogs and or sold or gave them any of the dogs, and we've got a lot of issues that the department's gonna have to answer. Now, Irene, I want to do you one favor, Hungs. I don't want you to wait, because I actually want people to see what this child looked like. To me, it's a child. Yep. And here is her picture, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, I'm hitting another camera. Hold on. I got multiple cameras in the studio, so let me hit the right camera here. And this is what I sent out to the people with abilities so they can have an opportunity to research. And there she is. So this is how we operate. We actually demonstrated this case on a live show with one of the people from Australia that has abilities. She had no idea. She was teaching people how she does her investigative research with her abilities. And I'm like, you want to do a case right now? She's like, what? So, and this is what she got, along with 3 other people. And I told Mr. Decker the findings, and it was interesting because somebody else was involved in the conversation, which I did not know the facts of the case. And it mirrored, I told him tonight, it mirrored up, straight up. So I can tell you this much: the people that are on the panel now have more questions to ask on cases, because you just can't go up to somebody and say, Irene, was this person killed by a dog man? That's not how it works, ladies and gentlemen. You send them an image and they give you all the information. They came back with the car. They came back with the guy that allegedly got hit by a car. They came back that she was picked up by a person in a car. They even described the car. And I mean, these people had all the facts. It was like, and I just took note of it and listened to see what he had. And it was hard to look at the autopsy reports and the media information, because here's why, Irene, and everybody else that's listening, is that people with abilities that are connected with me are close, and they can pick up information from me. So I did not want to taint or pollute their information that they were going to receive themselves. So I didn't want them to be like, oh, well, Grizzly has got this information. I wanted to be pure, untouched from them, 100%, no knowledge, no nothing, no name, anything, That's all they work. So, and that's what we do on Friday nights at 6 o'clock Eastern times. We do that every week. And every other week, we bring the panel upon the show, and each person goes through there and tells their side of the story. Irene, those animals are taught to be people friendly before they are taught to take down a person. I know there are some canines that we had, and that's why I can never name the agency. You were not allowed to pet them at all because they would rip your freaking arm off, ladies and gentlemen, if you are not the handler. So that's why you do not see certain dogs in public at schools to be touched by children and so forth because of liability. I'm not going to name a department that we're actually going to acquire a canine and get the certifications. It was going to be paid for by a nationally known school within the United States for the departments, law enforcement departments. But the training that we're going to include with this dog was to be an attack dog as well. And the town was like, nope, no liability here. We don't want it. Because it was narcotics and attack. It wasn't just narcotics. Now, you have different canines that can be trained for different things. Firearm retrieval, cadavers, missing people, right? Shell casings, whatever, whatnot. So you get the gist of it. Now, the people that showed this picture to Irene, unfortunately, felt what she felt, saw what she saw, and went through things. And it was kind of hard for me to watch them do that or hear the feedback because I've been attacked by a dog once and it got infected. And I had to have numerous shots. I had blood poisoning from it because the dog's mouth, people, has a lot of bacteria. And this bacteria, if not treated right away, can happen what happened with her, spread. It's like the bacteria eating flesh. What's that term for it in the hospital? Dang on, it slipped my mind as soon as I wanted to say it.
Necrosis?
No, the bacteria eating flesh that you catch in hospitals and stuff all the time. But yeah, you understand, Irene. But the dog's mouth this, and you know it, and I'm not a proponent of big dogs because I'm afraid of it. You know, ever since I got attacked by one. Let me tell you something. The first thing people do when they are attacked by a dog, and this makes it worse on themselves, is to pull away. Mm-hmm. As you pull, that dog's already got a grip on you, and it's tugging the opposite way. So now what are you doing? You are causing more trauma and damage to yourself. I tell people if you're being attacked, shove it. Shove it. Grab a hold of that dog and try to hold on. Do not try to force any body part out of its mouth. Yank, try to run, because it's going to cause 10 times more damage. I know that sounds horrible. I've seen what happens. I've seen what happened to people that's been attacked. I've seen the damage. You can look at the autopsy reports. I'd be more than happy to send them out. And if you don't believe that, go out to YouTube and turn off safe mode and type in those 2 keywords, and they will show you how to save damaged, dying tissue in surgery. They will show you the wound as it is now, and as they are going through the procedure, as they're removing tissues and flesh all the way to the bone to try to stop that from spreading. So if you're an average person with no medical knowledge or nobody that can help you understand something, and you only got part of that medical examiner's report or autopsy, man, does it sound bad? Absolutely. If you don't know what some of these medical terms are, it is like, hell yeah, I got attacked by, or she got attacked by a dog, man, or that person. But unfortunately, it looks like with the preponderance and the totality of all the circumstances involved, ladies and gentlemen, my professional opinion from Grizzly, that did not happen. It was attacked by actual canines. I think there's more involvement, allegedly, between such person and department. We may never know, it seems like. So I hate to say that, but cat and mouse, same thing. And my husband got a tetanus shot. Yes, absolutely. No, yeah. So anytime a person is bitten by a dog, I should have fact checked that in Tennessee, but I think it's 7 to 12 days. I can't remember. It's 7 or 10 or 12. It's right around there. You have to quarantine the dog, or they confiscate the animal to make sure that it doesn't have rabies. Because if I come back rabies, they end up taking the dog. If not, already depends on the severity of it. Not already go ahead and put it down. Then they send the brain off and have it checked for rabies, and that's what they do for wild animals. So yes, but no, Irene, feel free to work on the picture more. I mean, I'd love to hear more information and see what you get. Absolutely. You know, it's nice to see everybody's different views and angles. Maybe you'll pick up on some other stuff. Maybe you may have some issues of tuning in and seeing what they saw. But the moral of the story here, ladies and gentlemen, don't jump the gun, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just because somebody says something, step back. Don't be part of the rumor mill and add to fuel to the fire and jump on the bandwagon. Because the only thing I heard when we published this show was, oh my God, you got another real new LBL.
Mm-hmm.
So, Man Between the Lake Massacre. Did that actually happen? Absolutely. 110% guaranteed it did happen. Was there a cover up? Absolutely. Too many people like him, D.A. Roberts, Nick Valentine, and everybody else has been down up in there. Hellbent Holler people and everybody else that's been down there investigating. There's crap in that stuff, woods and down there between the states that should not walk upon this earth, but does. So Irene, she has a lot to say about it. Yes. I've actually, Irene, and we'll wrap up the show. I've actually been woken up 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning by psychics because the victim, the person that's crossed over, has actually made contact. It was like, you need to tell where my body's at. I need to tell you where my body's at. So that's kind of awkward. So we do put out the information. People can use it as what they want. I have contacted the FBI on cases and local departments. And usually when I do, and I never tell them who I am, but I always tell them I'll give them my 28, 29, 27 information. And they're like, huh? Yes, ladies and gentlemen, that is to run me and check myself out to make sure I'm not no low. And I am, because I was on hold 47 and a half minutes with the FBI when they traced my phone call. I wasn't ignorant. And I told them to F you. And I was waiting for local office to show up because I was trying to give them information about the case that they were on TV pleading, help me solve this case. But anyways, that's on a different show. But hopefully you all enjoyed it. Ninja Dave, thank you. You'll see a whole lot more Mr. Decker. He's part of the show. But I'm glad to have him. Hello, Lala, and welcome. This is another person with some great abilities. So, but yes, hopefully see you soon. And we're not going to tell you what's coming up next week. We're going to surprise you. So, Mr. Decker, thank you for your time. We're going to let you get home. That was a good investigation. That was a lot of good facts. I enjoyed that one.
I appreciate that. That's kind of what I do. Like, I'm not just going to take a word. I'm going to dig and see what I can find. I do want to put this out there because I'm hearing a lot of stuff about myself out there, and I'm going to put it out there. I am not a government shill. I am not part of any government cover-up. I do not work for the government. And to be truth be told, I'm not a big fan of the government the way it is now. All right? Got to put it out there.
You think, ladies and gentlemen, that he would be on with me on my show if he was that type of a person? Mm-hmm. Now I'll be saying y'all be smoking some crack. But no.
Right, and that's but this is what I've been told. I've received a lot of hate for this research. I have. I firmly believe that Dogman exists. I do believe they are out there. I believe there are people that have run across them and unfortunately have been attacked and killed. I am a firm believer in that.
And there
are other cases. Yes, I agree. There are other cases that I have been asked to look into and I'm going to as soon as I have the ability to. The Godsey case out of Knox County, Knox County, Kentucky is a big one. That's probably going to be my next one I'm looking at. I have a friend who is in some sort capacity, I'm not going to say what, part of the government up in that area. And he has pointed me in a couple of directions of where to start my investigation. So I'm going to be looking into that area as well. And there's a few other cases I'm going to be looking into. And I'm going to give it the same due diligence that I did with this case, and we're going to see what comes up. I'm not opposed to Dogman. I'm not out trying to disprove attacks or anything like that. I'm about the truth. I'm about the research and finding out what really happened. All right, so I want to put that out there because, again, I've gotten a lot of hate. I've had a specific person go to other podcasters I've talked to behind my back and try telling them awful things about me, just to discredit me because this is my belief on the Cocke County attack. But I'm going to stick by my guns because this is what the evidence is showing me. To anybody out there that believes this was a Dogman attack, give me your evidence. I will be more than happy to change my stance and re-examine any information if anybody can provide me with any more information to this case. For me, it's still kind of ongoing. I will accept more information. I have no problem with that. I'm not closed-minded in the least, as you guys will find out as we do more of these shows and as we discuss more things. But I need the information. I can't just be so-and-so said or I heard this here without any other backing up or documentation or anything. That's where I'm at.
And ladies and gentlemen, Grizzly, if there's a cover-up, I'll let you know. Now, this one, there's something going on, but it ain't paranormal related. And I'll leave it at that. So that community want to go up in an uprise and fight against whatever's going on corruption-wise, good luck. I know what corruption looks like, been around it, been involved in it. I know how politics works, ladies and gentlemen. But hopefully y'all enjoyed the show, and we'll let him go so he can get home to his loved one. And that was a good one. I enjoyed that one, sir.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. I really look forward to what's coming up, guys. Stay tuned. You're going to love it.
That's right. You have a good night and Godspeed. From coast to coast around the world. Take care, guys. See ya.
It's a grizzly.
Should we get out of here?
No. We're gonna watch and listen.
Action.
It's a grizzly.
Oh, shit, should we run?
No.
Action.
It's a grizzly.
Oh, should we run?
Okay. It's a grizzly.
Are you sure it's not a chipmunk? Action. No, I'm out of here. Action.
It's a grizzly.
I'm out of here.
Huh. Maybe it is a chipmunk. It's a grizzly.
Are we gonna die?
I don't know. We're just gonna sit here and listen and watch.
Let's get out of here, maybe.
Fall!